Hello, welcome back to Raven Art Paintings. Today we're gonna paint the Witcher from the Witcher Old World board game. This time it's gonna be the Witcher from the Bear School. His main color on the reference card is red, however on the graphic, the reference graphic is pretty pale, lack of color, and as well it's in a kind of bluish tone. I decided this time to improvise a bit and put my own thoughts about it. So please have a look what come out of that. The mini itself is prime in the black Citadel primer, and we're gonna put some colors now. The first we're gonna use the skin tone, which is the rat skin flesh, and we're gonna paint the face and his hands. We're gonna do a few thin layers just to cover over the black primer. Next we're gonna move to our red parts, so we're gonna use our Mephiston red mixed together with the Wagga flesh, pretty much equal parts, a little bit more red, and then we're gonna paint his red cloak, hood, and all those red bits that coming off that miniature. Today I also want to show you a bit easier way of painting eyes, so bear with me. This might be some sort of solution for some of you who struggle with it. And as well I will show you how I partly destroy my work towards the end by putting the final protective coat in my garage, and I underestimate the weather, so I got a bit of a grainy effect on my miniature, but I give up towards the end and I left it like that. So this is the lesson for the future. Make sure you have the right temperature in your room when you're doing the final transparent coat. Now we move to our brown tone, which is the Morfang brown, and we're gonna paint it mainly on his leather armor. I'm also using this color to paint those two stripes on his trousers. Our next step will be painting his hair, and I decided that he's gonna be a little bit ginger, so we gotta use a bit of a Trolls Layer orange. We're gonna use our initial brown tone, and as well we're gonna add the Nagaroth Night. First of all we're gonna paint them in brown, then we're gonna put the second layer of the brown. This time we're gonna add a bit of the medium just to slow down of the drying process. And once that's done, then we will be adding our purple and orange. So the purple will be coming from the bottom and then the orange from the top. So we add in a tiny bit of that darker purple, as you can see now, and trying to do a nice wee blending with the brown as we use the medium, so the color is still active. And that will help, you know, to reach the nice transition. Once that's done, then we're gonna put an orange color from the top, and we're gonna repeat the process as we did with the purple one. So we're gonna have towards the end we should have a nice transition from the very, very orange on the top towards the different shades of brown, and then on the bottom we're gonna have a really, really dark brown coming through the brown purplish tone. So this is the whole idea, to have the kind of from the very bright to the very dark tone on his head. Now our next step, we're gonna do the trousers. So we're gonna use the mixture of the Rhinox hide and the Nagaroth Night. Again, we want to start from the like a kind of like a dark brownish purple, and then we're gonna through our highlighting process towards the end, we're gonna trying to reach some nice purpley finish. Now we're gonna get the XV88 and we're gonna paint the pouches that he's wearing on his belt. In our next step, we're gonna use the Styligian drop with the tiny drop of the black color, the Abaddon black, and we're gonna paint all the leather. So it's gonna be like his belt, the stripes on his scabbard, and on his boots. At this point I had to get back for a minute to my red tone, as I forgot to paint a wee piece of his cloak on the left hand side on his scabbard. Now in our next steps, we're gonna mix the Morphank brown with the Rhinox hide, and we're gonna use this very dark brown tone to paint his boots, obviously except the armor plate that's in front of it, but all the rest will be the dark brown tone. I'm also using this mix to paint the scabbard itself, obviously in between the leather stripes that we painted with the Styligian drop earlier on. And as I forgot earlier on, we're gonna use our Styligian drop with the black to paint the sword hilt. Next we're gonna do a bit of a metallic paint, so we're gonna mix the Balthazar gold with the Retributor armor, and we're gonna paint the sword guard for both swords, the one on his back and the one he's holding in his arms, and then we're gonna paint with this mix both metal parts on both scabbards. Next we're gonna switch over to the lead belcher with a little bit of the black, and we're gonna paint all other metal parts, including the armor, sword, etc. For all tiny elements, I'm gonna use pure lead belcher. You can add a little bit of medium, as I did, just to give you that extra drying time, so the paint, you know, won't dry off on your brush while you doing it. And again, those tiny bits will be highlighted earlier on with the further lighter metallic paint. That's why I start purely with the lead belcher at this point. And now with the pure black, I'm painting over the hole in one of the scabbards, the empty one. Now the carp and the roots on the base are painted with our initial brown mix of the Rhinox hide and the Morphank brown. Now we're gonna do the eyes, so we're gonna do the eyeballs with the ivory. Again, I add a little bit of the medium just to give myself some extra drying time when I'm painting it. So we're doing 2 horizontal lines, one in each eye hole, and once that's done, then we're gonna do the pupils. In this case, I use the blue eyes, and instead of doing a dot, this is the trick, you're doing the thin vertical line, and you're doing it on each eyes. And once that's done, then we return to our skin color, which is the ratkin flesh, and again maybe a little bit of the ivory if needed, and we're gonna paint over the blue wherever it's needed. So if you have a problem with putting a nice wee dot on the eyeball, this is a perfect solution, especially for the witchers. As you know, the Geralt had a some sort of a cut eye. So if you're doing a straight line instead of a dot and then painting it over the skin, that's very handy. Obviously you have to do that process before you do your highlighting on your skin, so then you need to be careful not to destroy the eyes. But I think this is very useful technique, and in many occasions, you know, will make your life easier. Now, for the lips on his face, again, I used our skin tone with a little bit of our mix that we use for the cloak, just to make it a bit more darker, and that's gonna do the job. Next, we're gonna start with the wash. The first one is the Rakeland Flesh Shade, and we're gonna put all over the face and his hair. Again, please make sure that you remove the excessive amount from the eyeballs. Again, these eyes are already done, so we don't want to destroy them. Then with our ivory mix, I'm painting over a few kind of feathers that are coming off his leather armor. And once that dry off, we're gonna switch to the Agrax Earthshade, and we're gonna paint over the whole miniature with this wash. Next, we're gonna do a bit of a highlighting on the carp and the roots. So we're gonna start over with the Morphark Brown, and we're gonna do a bit of a dry brushing with this color. Next, we're gonna add a bit of a XV88. You can add a bit of that color while your brush is still wet with the brown one, so they mixed each other around the brush. And then finally we're gonna add a little bit of the ivory to our mixture, and do a very, very gently top surfaces. Next, we're gonna switch over to Waga Flesh, and we're gonna do a bit of a dry brushing on the base itself. There's a number of leaves on the bottom, and instead of painting them individually, we're just gonna do a speed base. So we're gonna do a bit of a dry brushing with the Waga Flesh. Then we're gonna add our next color, which is the Rapstone Glow. And finally we're gonna mix that with the Averlat Sunset, just to have a few different shades of green going through yellow towards the end. So we want to have that kind of a nice touch. You don't have to dry your brush completely. We want that paint to mix each other here and there, so make sure that you have a stiff brush for that purpose, and touch here and there. So we want the top surfaces to be a mixture of different shades of green and yellow. Now we're gonna do a bit of a dry brushing on his hair. Again, we're gonna win back to our Tross Layer Orange, and once that's done, we're gonna do a bit of a highlighting on his skin. So initially we start with our base color, which is the Ratskin Flesh, and then we add in a wee bit more of the Cadian Flesh Tone. So we're gonna do a couple layers of brighten tone until we get the satisfying effect. And for our final brightest skin tone, we're gonna add the Kisel Flesh to our mix, and then we do a gentle touch here and there on the top, on the most exposed surfaces of his face and hands. In our next step, I'm gonna use the red tone wash from the Army Painter, and we're gonna paint it on all over his cloak, hood, and all that red parts that we painted earlier on. Now this is the model looks like once it's dry off, and we're gonna move to our highlighting. So we're going back to our original mix of the red and green. However, this time we're gonna use a tiny less green, so we do probably like two red to 1 green proportion, and then after that we're gonna move to a pure Mephiston red, and once that's done we're gonna do a further highlight with another red tone. As I mentioned earlier on, we're gonna do the further highlights, so I add a bit of the Wilson Scarlet. So we adding that to our original mix, just to have the bit brighter tone. But towards the end, we're gonna do the final touch with the pure Wilson Scarlet here and there. And also at this point I put the first layer of that red on the base itself. Obviously we have to cover it through the black primer, so it's probably the real required couple of layers at this time. I have also decided to put a wee wound on his hand, so he's gonna be bleeding a bit. So as we have a red on the palette now, so I put a wee kind of dropping blood on his face, and then we're gonna add a tiny dot of the blood for the blood god on the top of that wound, just beside the hairline, just for the better effect. Now, so this is how our miniature looks so far, and we're gonna proceed with the further highlighting. Initially we're gonna start with our Morphin brown for the leather armor, and we're gonna use the Scrag brown to highlight this brown tone. Now we're gonna add a little bit of the ivory just to brighten that brown further, and towards the end, for the final detail, it's like, you know, the stitches and the couple bits like that, we're gonna use a very bright brown. So we're gonna add further more part of the ivory and do a tiny little touches on those exposed details, like the stitches I mentioned. Next, we're gonna switch back to our Ranox hide and the Nargarot Knight, and we're gonna do the highlighting on the trousers. Once again, we're going back to our ivory and we're going to highlight our purple tone with ivory in couple stages. Yeah. Our next highlight will be the leather stripes, so we're going back to our Steel Legion drop. In this case, again, we will be highlighting this initially with the pure Steel Legion drop. However, we will be adding ivory in couple stages to do some more highlights, and finally we're gonna do and edge highlighting here and there with pretty much pure ivory with tiny bit of the Steel Legion drop. Next, we get back to our Morphrong Brank with the Rhinox hide, and we're gonna do a bit of highlighting on his boots. Again, we start with our initial tone, and then we add in more and more Morphrong brown. So our brightest tone in this case will be the Morphrong brown. We're doing the same on the sword scabbards on his back as well. Now for a final touch with this brown, we add a tiny bit of this cracked brown and do a gentle touch here and there on the shiny parts of the boots. Now for the moment we're going back to our Steel Legion drop and we do a tiny highlight on the sword hilt, which I forgot to do earlier on. So just a tiny touch here and there just to highlight this element. Now we're going back to our XV88 and we do a bit of highlighting on the couple pouches on the back of his belt, and again we gonna add a wee bit of the ivory for the further highlight of the stone. Our next move is going back to the Retributor armor, and we're gonna do a tiny touches here and there on the elements we painted all earlier on, which is like the sword guard, the wee elements on the scabbards, just to bring them up a little bit more. Next we're gonna move to our mix of the lead belcher and the black. So I want to have two colors. So initial one will be the mixture of the black and the lead belcher, and we're gonna put the half of the sword from one side and then the other half from the other side, just to have that kind of effect, a nice effect. And then the other sides we're gonna paint it over with the pure lead belcher. Once we have that done, then we're gonna use silver color from the Vallejo, and then we're gonna mix it over a bit with the lead belcher and do the tiny touches here and there, just to bring that brightest metal color further. I also used this mix for his medallion and the couple bits on his leather armor as well. Yeah, once that's done, we're gonna switch to the dry brushing brush, and we're gonna do a bit of dry brushing on the big part of the armor, like the arm shields or the boots. So we get in our original mix of the black and lead belcher, and we do a tiny bit of the dry brushing on that on those parts of our miniature. Once that's done, we go back our fine brush and we're gonna do final touches with our silver here and there on our armor, with a bit of a highlighting, a couple dots here and there. Again, if you have a problem keeping the the paint wet on your brush, you might also add a tiny bit of the medium just to extend the drying time on your brush. And as I mentioned earlier on, the red over the black, if you want to have a nice pure red tone, you need to do a couple layers. So now's the time to finish it off our base. I have also decided to get back to our Raycon shade color and to put another layer of that onto the scabbard. So this is how our miniature looks so far. And we're gonna finish it off with a little bit of the green, so we're gonna put a tiny bit of that flat grass on one side, and then once that's done, I'm gonna plant a wee piece of the higher grass right beside it, just to put a bit of a additional life, nature on that miniature. And our final bit will be a bit of a blood. So again, I put a tiny bit of the blood again on the head, and we bit on the sword, and that's pretty much it. The model is done. I mentioned earlier on that I have partly destroyed my miniature. So I have to tell you, I went to the garage to put my coating of the protective varnish. However, the weather outside was like -10, so the garage was pretty cold. It wasn't frosty, but it was really, really cold. And when I was putting the matte coat over the shiny one, the talc powder did a kind of like a grainy effect, which I'm not overly happy with it. So, but this is it. I'm not doing this miniature again. This is the lesson for the future, to avoid it. If you're doing the protective varnish, make sure you have the right environment for that. I learned my lesson. So this is it. The model still looks somehow, it's not the effect towards the end I was expecting to be, but that's what it is, I suppose, just life. So once again, thanks for watching. I hope you like this tutorial, and if so, please give the thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. And I hope to see you soon on my next clip. Take care, bye now.